Coming up on episode 90 of Podcast PD, Stacey, AJ, and I, we're going to be talking about you get professional development. You love professional development. But then what do you do after you get that professional development? We're going to find out. This is Podcast PD, the show that provides you with anytime, anywhere professional development. Our conversations and guests will provide you with the learning you might get in a faculty meeting or on a PD day. Except you're going to have more fun with AJ Bianco, Stacey Lindis, and me, Chris Nessie. Let's start the show. What is going on, Podcast PD listeners, Podcast PD fans? Chris Nessie here, co-host of Podcast PD, and I'm joined as always by my Podcast PD compadres, Stacey Lindis and AJ Bianco.
Wow.
Oh, he got just AJ?
Sorry, all week he's been introducing me as Alfred Jennings or something ridiculous.
He got to be Austin Jackson earlier in the week.
I was Austin Jackson. Last night I was Austin Jackson.
You based all the good names on ISTE.
Right, it's true. He lost his creativity.
It is what it is. All right, how you guys doing? What's up?
AJ, you go first. I always go first.
Okay, well, living the dream. You know, what can we say? You know, it's another day that we're recording and things are going on here in Jersey. Just trying to make it through. I hate to say it like that, but we are kind of limping into the new year. You know, nothing bad.
Hello to.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, say hello to Bethany again. You know, because we're live. I'm sorry to cut you off, AJ, but you know we're live on Twitch and Periscope and YouTube. So say hello in the chat. Rochelle Dene Poth hanging out tonight with us. Got to see her a little bit earlier in the week, doing some great stuff with AR and VR. Our boss is here, Stephanie Scrocky, in the house. Hello, Stephanie.
Stephanie,
one of our executive producers. So that's a lot of fun. Glad the gang is all here. Sorry, AJ, go ahead.
No, really, I got nothing going on. Like, I'll be honest.
All right, Stacey, how you doing?
It's so hard to it's so hard to say like what's going on. Sports are lame. The weather is cold, and the holidays are coming. My students are all remote. So like, you know, living the dream here at the end of 2020. So, woohoo! Stacey, how are you?
I'm all right. It's been a crazy week. I was sharing with Chris before we went live that each week these last few weeks has been like a new shift for me and my co-teacher as we navigate just the newness of being home and, you know, being home and quarantining, being home and isolating. And then this week is the first week that just passed. This is the first week where all of our students have also been home with us. So when we were quarantining, our hybrid kids who were in person were in school with a sub. So that was a different kind of experience. I feel like I just need to be like set in like one place for a few more days before we go back to school. But we're supposed to go back on Thursday. So I don't know. Then it will be like back to normal. Yay. I like normal. So.
Did you say Thursday?
Thursday. Yeah.
Wrong, sir. Wrong.
Stop
Not
it.
happening.
No. Look at the glee on my face. I want to go back. I love seeing my kids. I get so much energy being in person. My teaching is different from home than it is in school. I know this because even without children in front of me on Tuesday, my co-teacher and I went in just to grab a few things for like the week that we were going to be away, since we're changing all these new units and stuff. And my energy levels are up higher when I'm like at school, and I changed that caused me to change a couple of things at home in my virtual space. I created a standing desk in my family room using oddball furniture where I just stacked it all on top of each other. We have a love sack, and the way we have it arranged right now. Stop. Chris, you're so horrible.
I always wanted one of those.
It's like awesome. It's so cool. So anyway, the way we have the furniture arranged right now, we have 2 extra arms. And so I stacked one on top of the 2 sides together. I don't know. And then I took the coffee table that also fits on the cushions and I use that as to elevate it just a little bit more, like my standing desk at school.
Wait, hold
So
on. How many things do you need to actually elevate?
not a lot. Not a lot.
You can just put,
baby. Yeah.
You're horrible, Chris. I hope that comes out later. Yeah. No. Anyway, whatever. But it was nice to have a standing desk. And just have that energy. I don't know. I feel like it brought my teaching back up to where it kind of is at school, but it's never going to be the same. Where like, I feel like I have a micro audience at home with my boys being in 2 other rooms while we're learning together. And so like have to be quieter anyway. So it's just, I don't know. Yeah. I hear you, Mike Barilla. Chris's version, he made up for it. Whatever.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I'm all kinds of distracted. Moving on. I'm a big dork. Anyway,
Wow.
I can't wait to get back to school because I am a big dork and I like my kids this year. They're very adorable.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing good. I did. I'm just coming off a
Nobody asked.
big.
How are you, Chris?
All right. Nobody asked. It's cool. All right. So let's
How
get
are
to
you,
people
Chris?
we.
You're doing good.
I'm
You're
good.
doing
Came
good.
off a week-long binge of ISTE. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that for like a hot second or at the end?
Hot second. Go to chrisnessie.com/YouTube and you can watch the live streams I did every night from 10 to 11. AJ was a part of them. We've got some people who checked those live streams out in the chat, got to have some great conversations. And I also released those conversations as bonus episodes of the House of Ed Tech. I was really excited that AJ got to be a part of it. Got to speak to Rochelle Danae Poth, Jamie Donnelly, Jesse Lubinsky came on one night. The first night I had 2 of the 3 opening virtual keynote speakers who showed up, and that was really cool. The third one didn't show up, but she was a previous guest of the House of Ed Tech. So in a sense, I've had them all
You've got
on the
the
show
whole
now.
trifecta. I
Got the whole thing. That's what you get with my podcast.
With the House of Ed
everything.
Tech. Yep.
That's right. But speaking of podcasts, this is a show about PodcastPD, podcasting for professional development. And we've got 2 guests this evening that have started their own podcast, which makes my little heart go, yes. So why don't we bring on these 2 fine Jersey gentlemen, the Paul O'Neill and the Corey Radish.
Evening, guys. And Stacey, how are you?
All right. How
gentlemen,
are you,
what's
Corey?
going on?
I got to tell you, first and foremost, congratulations. Episode number 90, just 10 away from the century mark. So that's awesome stuff. And I've had the pleasure of meeting each of you in person. And sometimes all 3 or 5 of us were or 4 or 5 of us were in the same room. And it's nice to see you're as much fun in person as you are on the podcast. Reminds me how much we miss you guys.
I know it's kind of weird that we did not have Ed Camp New Jersey last weekend or 2 weekends ago to kind of get the Jersey love all in one place.
And there's nothing better than planning an Ed camp with Chris Nessie.
True story.
Love it. It's a lot of fun.
You walk into a planning thing after a day and Chris will, if he could have done drops there, he had to do them live. That was the only thing, and just kept us laughing. So that was good memory. Ed Camp Jersey Shore doing that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Chris Nessie.
I feel like that's one you play often.
I've only got one.
Yeah, it's on a loop. It's on a loop though, AJ.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So guys, you're here. You've got a brand new podcast. So first, tell us what the podcast name is, what it's all about, and how you got to this great point in your careers. Now you're at the top. You're podcasters now.
Yeah, Paul.
Corey, we Corey and I talk a lot, 5 days a week, the work week, sometimes 6 and 7. It's really become awesome I've witnessed his journey a little bit from afar, and now it's become from more up close. We use Voxer as our medium to communicate. And Corey and I talked about getting together to form a podcast at the suggestion of somebody in one of our coffee EDU groups. And we said it would be like an inside look at our Voxer communications. And, sometimes to be a fly on the wall, those conversations, I'm sure you guys can relate. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's you asked about the name, which was I got to give credit to my partner there. I was trying to come up with something with debunking and diffusing the status quo, and I was struggling. And so I came up with not status quo, but like active quo, like we're going to continue to be active in. And so I dropped that to Paul, and he basically said, I don't know if I can do a podcast with that name. That is just awful. And no, he didn't say that. He said, he actually messaged me back in Voxer, and he said, what are your thoughts on status grow? And I was like, boom, that is it. That is exactly, if you hear our Voxes, and those of you who have been to any of my sessions and the conversations that we've had, it's something that, you know, it's still a struggle to push people, you know, out of that comfort zone. So we want to be able to utilize our conversations, do some things where we have guests, and really, you know, push the envelope a little bit, and even get some pushback even in our discussion.
I love it.
I love the name.
Yeah, I love the name, and I can see how it would be a very natural, evolving, like an evolution to get to where you are now. You guys are such great presenters. I love having gone to both of you, like both of your sessions at various ed camps. I know Paul brings a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, and a lot of like, you can do this. Right? Like, it's not today, it's tomorrow. You're going to do this tomorrow. You're going to flip this. You're going to think about this tomorrow. You're going to flip it into Monday's teaching. And I know, Corey, like you're also like a really good cheerleader, but you have a different kind of energy. And I can't wait to, like, I am going to subscribe to another podcast. Shocker. That's what I do every Sunday night, is I subscribe to a new podcast. I'll subscribe, and I can't wait to hear like the difference in the balance that you guys are likely to lend, just because I know how both of you present. And I've had, you know, one-on-one conversations with each of you. So I would love to be a fly on the wall in like your Voxer group as you're describing it. That sounds great.
Yeah, and Corey and I talked about the fact that, you know, there's a lot of sometimes forced alignment out there. There's a lot of bobblehead behavior, you know, and that's not what we're going to be about. You know, we definitely our Voxes sometimes we're in alignment with each other and we agree, and other times there's pushback, you know, but the bottom line, at the end of the day, we want to keep you thinking. You know, we want to keep your thoughts evolved. And, you know, when the three of you invited us on tonight and we saw it was about professional development, I was like, what a great avenue for us to explore, you know, because professional development is about growth mindset. You know, it's about getting a little better each day. It's about opening your mind to the possibilities.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
There it is.
Love it.
Yeah, it was kind of cool seeing it in the car today. He just happened to, you know, put it on. But you know, I appreciate the kind words, and you know, you guys have really been you know, three of you to follow and follow your lead when it comes to podcasts. And you know, Chris, I remember you doing one of your original podcasts, I think at one of the first ECETs way back when. And
the Alphabet Conference.
Yeah,
I was just thinking that. I didn't want to say it out loud.
Yeah, I was struggling too. I'm like, I'm gonna mess this up.
He said
but
two.
It was actually NJPA ECET too.
Yeah.
I think that was the one where Principal Mills was there along with Baruti Cafelli.
Yes, Baruti Cafelli was there. Yep.
But you know, listening to you guys, and you know, seeing the evolution and knowing the passion that you put behind your work, you know, not just with kids, but with this podcast that helps out so many people. You know, we thought, you know, do we want to dip our toes in that water? And, you know, we vox back and forth, and, you know, we did get that push from a lot of our Coffee EDU JS people that I see in the chat. So thanks to them for, you know, for showing up. You know, and we do want to push people forward. Even today, you know, Paul pushed the group. We had a conversation about just giving some people hope. And so our homework for our next Sunday morning chat is to come back with a report that you took somebody and you gave them hope, especially with, you know, like AJ, you said, I'm just trying to get through, man. Right. I'm just trying to get through. So how do we reach out and instill some hope with some people and realize that we're still very blessed right? To be overwhelmed and exhausted and tired because other people are losing their jobs and homes and businesses. So,
No,
and
that's right.
I know homework on a Sunday sounds terrible, but it's that meaningful kind of homework. I didn't hit him with a worksheet or something meaningless. It was something where we hope to inspire others and be inspired by the stories that we hear.
And that's my point, right? Like anytime I feel like I have a conversation with either of you, it's got you thinking and growing and looking for the turnaround, right? Like how do you take that learning that you had on the weekend and turn it into something that your kids can also grow from? I really look forward to checking out the show.
Well, we look forward to getting started. We're looking at January as being the launch. No specific date yet, but Corey and I are going to talk about how we got here and the meaning behind Status Grow and what we hope to accomplish. So we're excited to join the market.
Would you guys be up for me playing a little bit of a sample of what you guys have out there? Give the audience a taste?
Sure.
yeah, go ahead.
All right.
This is in the Corey
pulling
Radish
this up.
lab, by the way, Corey Radish headquarters, where the magic is created.
All right. I will play. You guys have out here the mini launch. So here we go. Let's get a taste of Corey and Paul.
This is the Status Grow podcast. This is just a little sneak peek as our full episode launch will come in January of 2021. For now, enjoy this little tidbit of our podcast and what's to come. Yeah, so Paul, that I'm moving. So I was out in the garage today. I was packing up some things, and I ran across a book that I got when I attended a Solution Tree conference back in 2005. And the keynote presenter was Dr. Crystal Kirkendall. And I know you know this about me, but those of you who've ever been around me know I love the term merchant of hope when describing educators. And this woman was the one who shared that at that keynote. And it's been something that I've used ever since. So I'm looking through the book today and I'm, thumbing through the pages and I see this quote from her. And let me just read it real quick. We cannot possibly bring out the best in our children unless we're willing to give the best of ourselves. And I was really just, especially everything we're going through, I was really moved by that quote. What do you think about? What do you feel when you hear that quote?
Corey, that's powerful stuff. I was just in a Twitter chat this morning and we were talking about shifting our mindset during the pandemic about grading policies and attendance policies. And the comment came up about a district, just it's always the way they've done things. And if we're going to try to be the best that we are, then we've got to move away from that status quo thinking and move more into a growth mindset.
Yeah. And listen, you just kind of described everything that has brought us to this point in this podcast is, we got to move away from that status quo and into status grow. And I can tell you, everybody out there, we're excited to bring some more episodes to talk about how we can continually grow. But until then, make sure you look out for our launch dates and follow our hashtags and PLN365 and Coffee EDUJS. Until the new year, when we come at you with our first ever full podcast episode, we want to wish you nothing but the best this holiday season as we end this long 2020 and enter into 2021.
That's fantastic, guys.
Well done.
Guys, that
Well
was
done.
awesome.
First of all, I just want to say I'm kind of excited to I didn't listen to the trailer before, and I really like the mini launch because I think right there for the people who don't know you and we've met you and we've spoke to you and we've been in conversations, been in your PD sessions, been part of Twitter chats. I appreciate the point of view you guys bring to the table because I don't think you're gonna hold back. I think you have a lot to say, you have a lot to share, and I really think that both of you together, your opinions are. I don't know if you're gonna butt heads. But I think your opinions are going to be very strong. And I think a lot of people are going to get a little bit of a wake-up call about what they're doing in education.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, AJ. And, watching your journey has been awesome. And I know you've been attempting and have reached the heights that you want to do. So congrats on that. You know, it comes down to, you know, doing some things with dignity, but also staying true. Right. You know, one of our recent Coffee to You conversations was about the number of social media posts of being exhausted and, you know, we didn't sign up for this. And somebody had said, you know, we got thrown in front of the COVID bus. And I trust me, and I want to tell all the listeners, I understand it. I'm compassionate. I know what you're going through. But, you know, thrown in front of the COVID bus, yeah, if it was 50 miles away going 5 miles an hour, you were thrown in front of it. You know, so we want to be able to have that civil discourse, which we saw many of our national political leaders couldn't do. Because if we don't, what's the sense, right? Our buddy Ken Williams from Unfold the Soul talks about if there's 5 people in a room and they all agree, that makes 4 of us irrelevant. Right. So we want to be able to have, and listen, we have such a friendship, you know, relationship that, you know, if I say something that, you know, he completely disagrees with, he just says, Core, I wouldn't go that route. Wouldn't advise it. I don't think we should do that. And vice versa. And that's kind of what we're looking for.
No, spoiler alert, we are going to butt heads. There's no doubt. We do that a couple times a week, you know, but as Corey said, it'll be done, you know, with the most respect, and there'll definitely be a lot of I wonders. And I've noticed, you know, type of statements coming out to push and challenge each other's thinking. You know, the bottom line is this: I'm not Corey, you know, and I haven't had Corey's experience, you know, so Corey may view things differently than I do. And it doesn't make him right and me wrong or vice versa. You know, it's just different ways to look at things. And I think that's what we'll bring to the table is we're not going to pull punches, and we definitely won't be agreeing on any agenda. You know, it's just about helping educators just get a little better each day.
It's fantastic. I mean, we could ask our chat here live who's watching, you know, are you hashtag Team Corey or hashtag Team Paul? And we could don't
do it.
Listen, he's got a comma in his followers, so
yeah. We talked about that, man. I told you it's
5 digits. I have a comma, but his is 5 digits, so I'm only in the 4s. Yeah, no, you know, it's one of those things that you know, and I think Stacey hit the nail on the head a little bit, that, you know, if you know us, you know, we both have energy. It's a different energy. It's a different style even. You know, there are times that Paul has to talk me down because I get a little riled up, and then there's some times that I have to try to, you know, rile Paul up, you know, and say, hey, listen, you know, what do you think of this? And recently we just had some really good conversation, you know, around you know, technology, and, you know, the idea that we're still trying to catch up to technology in 2020 in education. We're not out in front, right? Other professions are out in front, and we're still trying to catch up. And, you know, that's a systems issue that we have to address.
Well, that kind of goes back to what you said before about how, you know, are we doing things the same way we've always done them? You know, and AJ and I talked about this week, that, you know, everything that's going on right now didn't cause the problems in education. It just shined a really big light and put a magnifying glass in front of the dents in the armor that already existed everywhere. Accessibility, the digital divide, you know, districts wanting to be one-to-one but didn't have devices. Well, now everybody needs 10,000 Chromebooks yesterday. You know, and that's what it was like all through the summer. So yeah, it's interesting times that we're trying to do this all in. And, you know, with your 2 voices out there amplified now through the podcast, we've increased the odds that change can happen, and the spreading of ideas and good conversation can impact teachers and ultimately impact a lot of students.
That's what I'm excited for. I'm excited for the fact that, like, people who don't get to see you at our Jersey Shore or Jersey conferences or wherever else you're going, like, this can become so much broader, and your voices will be available to so many more people just through the airwaves, and through your reach will grow, and teachers will grow for the benefit of having listened to you. And that's so good. That's so good for educators. It's so good for you guys, because I think through conversation, we also do a lot of our own reflection and growth. And I don't know, I'm very happy. I'm very happy for the education world right now.
And I did put in the chat. So if you're watching on Twitch or YouTube or wherever, I put the link to their listing on Spotify. It will also be in the show notes out at podcastpd.com/90. So are you guys are we in Apple Podcasts yet? Or are we so far just in Spotify, or is other places coming soon?
Yeah, I believe it's other places coming soon. So, we wanted to get something out before the new year. We're doing our due diligence and research on equipment. We're looking at you guys, and we're not at that level yet. We're looking at some starter kits. Keep the training wheels on for a little bit.
My starter kit costs $60. Just saying.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
And you sound great. So,
and I haven't changed anything since then. So,
yeah.
Corey,
so
I have a feeling, man. Chris is just staring at you right now. I see his chops watering. So I have a feeling he's working on a DM right now that's gonna be sent to you guys about some information. I can see it in his eyes.
We can geek out anytime anybody wants. Just let me know. I'm happy to help everybody out who wants to do this.
Yeah. Now who's a big dork?
No, it's still you.
Hey, Chris, it's okay.
Mr. Podcast over here.
It's interesting too. I mean, you could certainly go top of the line, or you could go a little more budget friendly, I'm sure, with all the equipment. But what I'm most impressed by is we've got 3 laboratories on display. We got Stacey with the books behind her and all that contained knowledge, and Nessie and Bianco and in the mix, in the bunker, in the PD bunker. You know what I mean? Like, I'm excited. I got to work on my bunker game. I'm in my wife's setting right now. She's got her background up here, and this is what I've got. But we'll make the changes before January for sure.
Yeah, I need a more professional setup too.
Or a light bulb.
You promised me that. I like my ambiance. I don't have to worry about makeup.
Ambiance, you're like podcast steampunk. Just in the dark ages with a microphone.
There are 3 lights in this room. That's all I have to say.
What are they, 15-watt bulbs?
Maybe. I like dark mode.
So do you guys have guests lined up? Is it going to be the 2 of you through conversation? What do you guys envision for the format of your podcast?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to have guests. We started to line a few up. We got really, back to the evolution of how we got here. And, when COVID hit and Paul had taken over Coffee EDU Jersey Shore, which was at Barnes & Noble at the Monmouth Mall in Eatontown. And, we had 2-3 sessions before really COVID hit. He took over for Carrie Hennessy Wilson. And, we decided as we started to get into the virtual world at work, why not let's keep it going and let's see what we can do. And so we started to do these Sunday morning Zooms, and I just started to reach out to some people that I've connected with. We had LaVonna Roth, we had Rosa Isaiah, we had Ken Williams, we had Basil Marin, and everybody was so gracious to just, come and have this Sunday morning chat. And so, we'll probably repeat some of those guests and then look for new guests. But one of the things that we really want to do, and Paul can expand on it, is, we want to kind of highlight some of those people that are showing their growth and demonstrating their growth. And that may not just be in education. That may be, personal growth. It may be, somebody in the business world or the medical field, and be able to get that out there, that, the challenges that we face. Paul, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Stacey talked about
See how seamless I pass that off? We're like pros already.
nice little lateral. Absolutely. Correct. So Stacey talked about making it transferable, making it something that you could bring back to the classroom on Monday or bring back to the classroom immediately the next day. And that's something that's important to us. We're kings and queens of the acronyms and kings and queens of the buzzwords in our field, so often, especially in professional development, it's full of that. You're just getting a whole bunch of that, but you're not getting back enough. How does that look? How does that sound? How can that be employed? Or even having an opportunity for interaction where somebody says, "Hey, Corey, I know your background is similar to mine. How did you overcome this obstacle?" And that's what we hope that we'll be able to provide for people through whether it's Corey and I kicking it back and forth or guests, that are part of our show. But we're so proud because the evolution of the in-person that turned into the virtual has brought guests from different states that wouldn't be able to normally join us, if we were still in person. So it's definitely something that we're going to continue on when we can get together again. We'll still do probably one a month, where we get together, just to have that personal connection. But we'll still keep that open so that we can have the Christies from Texas and the Dennises from Wisconsin and Rochelle's from Pittsburgh, Bethany's from Arkansas. We really feel like we've made some great connections and brought these people into New Jersey. And as we know, all New Jersey people were doing great things here in New Jersey.
That's right. And I love that you brought up the KINGS acronym, which is, of course, knowledge is needed. Go start.
That's right.
I just made that up. Just throwing it out there. Maybe it'll stick. Remember, when you now see people writing blog posts and podcasting about kings, it started here.
I thought that was the real thing.
Nope, I just made it up.
I like it. You're so smart.
No, that was great. I thought it was real too. I'm like, here's Chris just throwing out a cool phrase. It'll be retweeted 1,000 times today.
I'm writing it down,
Nice.
by the way.
Yeah, knowledge is needed. Go start. Hashtag kings. Nice. All right. So, the topic for tonight, it certainly stems around professional development. And we'd love you guys to stick around. And, if anybody else wants to also hop in, go to podcastpd.com/join. And the question we want to hit on for the rest of our time in this episode is, so you've gone to professional development, you've attended a workshop, you've led a workshop, you've gone to a conference, or you've sat in district professional development. And, okay, that's over. Now what? What do we do with our professional development once we get it? How do we actually take action on it? How have you taken action on the professional development that you have provided or that you've received? So what does that look like? What is the practical application of PD? Let us know in the chat. Let us know here. You guys, again, everybody's welcome. The phone lines are open. And somebody's at the door. Let's go.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm actually at my mother-in-law's because it was just too hectic at my house, and they're not here right now. But my other daughter is here because she has school in the morning. I have an early 8 a.m., so I wanted to come here and be fine. But she's bringing the dogs over, so that's what happened. So I apologize, everybody listening.
No worries. I thought you were in a different time zone and it was acceptable to be ringing the doorbell. But in New Jersey, it's 9 o'clock. And I'm like, anyone rang my doorbell right now, I think there'd be a problem.
Oh my goodness, I was on such a different wavelength. I thought that was a Nessie button, and that was like the lines were open.
I did for a second too. I wouldn't put it past him.
I didn't realize that was live and direct from the Raiders family headquarters.
That's a whole different jingle. Hop aboard now. The phone lines are open. Go to podcastpd.com/join.
My goodness.
Oh, man, I'm having D100 flashbacks.
Yes.
Well, the one I had for Corey being at his mother-in-law's house was,
You get nothing. You lose.
all right. So seriously, what do we do with PD after we get professional development? What does it look like for you? Anybody can jump in. Duck, duck, goose, go.
I'm going to go back to, I really like being able to put it into application immediately. So I know especially district PD. I feel like if it's coming from the district, I hope that they've done enough work to know that there's a perceived need or a felt need for the PD that they're offering, and that it's something that teachers can put into practice the next day. So I attended PD from a teacher this week, and he talked about the Moat extension in Google, and just, making life a little bit easier for yourself by giving comments to your kids, but using your voice. And he also talked about how his kids are really latching onto it. And I thought that was really helpful because it shows the value for the teacher, which is always where I think we start, right? Like, how is this going to be easier for me? But I think when we shift the value to students, then you really see the power in professional development. And so when he did that, I was like, okay, this is something that I want to try. And it's something that I want to try soon in my next unit, or in the unit that we're currently in. So that was Thursday. I'm putting it into practice for tomorrow. So I'm excited.
Now, for those who don't know, what is Moat?
So Moat gives you the ability to leave voice feedback to your students in their Google Docs. Mm-hmm. And it follows them through the Google ecosystem. So it's not just Docs. It could be in slides or whatever. Anywhere where you can create a comment bubble and type something in, you can leave a voice comment. And it's really nice. I mean, it's freemium. So there's a free version, and then there are layers and levels that you can pay for. But I think for my needs, I'm good with the free version. I've actually had it downloaded for a while and just never used it. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, I'll download that and get back to it. And now someone reminded me to get back to it, which is also really helpful.
And talk about personalizing that connection too, especially with us being apart. So neat to be able to hear somebody's voice and to hear the authenticity in that feedback. So I actually had an experience with it. One of our teachers sent me a message on a shared doc. I was like, whoa, hear your voice. That's so cool.
And you can do it back. So that's really nice too.
Absolutely. And quick shout out to Marlena. I just saw you in the chat, Marlena. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, Marlena.
Yeah, so Stacey, Kaizena does that as well. And what I like about Kaizena is that you can create a bank of feedback responses, written or verbal, that you can then just press a button because you're seeing the same errors, let's say, over the need for feedback. So, for me, PD, while it was, a second income to go to other schools and provide PD, I always left, hoping people would, reach out. I always said at the end, please reach out if you tried any of the strategies, and a few people would, and, I would reach back out to the principal and say, hey, how are things going? And, I would get, the stock answer. And, I think the challenge that we have is, how do we make it job embedded? It's okay to go out to a PD, but then how do you come back and make it job embedded where we're actually watching, so I would love to see what you're doing and maybe have a few people watch, and then let's just debrief about it. Like, how did you feel it went? What was the barriers that took, that were in place for you? What successes do you feel were there? What did the kids think about it? And to continue the conversation, because I feel like a lot of times we go even to those ones where you walk out of it and you're like, oh man, but then some of that excitement wanes, and you go back to doing the things that you've always done, which is what we're trying to avoid.
See, it's the problem with those sessions where we come all excited. Like, we get there, we get all riled up, we get back to school, and then somebody says, oh, nah, I don't think it's going to work for me. I don't see how that's going to fit. I don't have time to do that. We don't have that access to that technology, so on and so forth. And it kind of just kills that momentum that we just all put together. And that's why Chris and I were talking, last night as he was doing his House of EdTech ISTE review. When we look at PD, I think a lot of PD that we've been used to. And Stacey, you mentioned the Moat there, and I was nervous you were going to start saying it's just a how to use Moat. I think we've had so many PD sessions that are just, here's the how to, but there's no why to or when to. So I think when you talk about a session that's powerful like that, it's more of, as Chris, you said, value, right? That's the word that you use yesterday. How do we get value from this, and how are we going to help our students?
Right. It's all about kid value. Like, again, like the natural thing is to have like value to self, right? Like, how is this going to help me? but I almost never buy into anything unless I know that my kids are going to get value out of it. Yeah, I'll look for time savers and like little tips and tricks, but when the things that get sticky are the ones where I know my kids will benefit so much more than just me saving time doing something. And that's when like I choose to bring those things into the classroom, right? You know, as a former tech coach, I knew about Mo a long time ago. I knew about Kaizena, but again, these are things that you kind of forget about or whatever. Sometimes you need that spotlight brought back onto some of the things that you once knew about. And then you just start questioning yourself, like, well, why did I let that go? That was a great thing. And like, sometimes it is okay to cycle back and do some of the old stuff, but with purpose, right? Like it's a yes, and instead of a yeah, but, which is what you were talking about earlier, AJ. Like you bring everything back and people start like naysaying and kind of picking apart your excitement. And we've experienced that. We've gone to so much PD together and then we've all debriefed like, well, what did it look like when you talked about it? And it's just like, there's like a lot of want and the energy comes down, right? So you leave a Paul O'Neill session and you're like, you're riding high and you're like, this is going to be great. I can't wait to talk to so-and-so about this. And then it like, they put a little like popping your balloon and you're like, and then it's over. And then, but I know like for me, I'm just trying to like stay positive. I know AJ, you and I've talked about that a lot, like just being positive and bringing the positivity. And I know there's one administrator in my building who I notice it every time. And I need the reminder every time I'm in her office, but she has a whiteboard right behind her desk. And the first thing you see on it is the quote, yes, and, right? Because that is her mentality. And I love that energy because like I walk away and I think about that after being with her. And like, I think to myself, well, what can I say yes and to one of my kids about, right? Like who can I, make a transformative move with so that they are feeling that they can accomplish the world and tackle anything.
Stacey,
I think that
I'll assure you, I'm just a Zoom call away. If you want to keep the air in that balloon, just hit me up and we'll
Thank you.
keep it together.
No,
I'll
Paul,
box you.
That's one thing, Paul, that I appreciate about your sessions. I've been in several of your sessions, and I think one of the things about your session is not just the information you share, but you always have bullet points as to how you can do this the next day. Chris, put Christy's message back up there real quick. All right, we'll talk about that in 1 second. I don't want that to go away. I want to talk about that. But Paul, I love that you bring it to here's 3 things you can do when you leave this session that you can bring to your school, you can do in your school. I think that's what makes things powerful.
Thank you, brother. I think also too, the other misconception is time. We always don't have a lot of time to implement everything. So not everything can be implemented, and that's okay because the issues that are going on or things that are not happening, they didn't take place, immediately. They took place over time. So it takes time to address these things and fix these things. So I think that's what we have to look at coming away from PD.
Well, I also think that you have to build a culture, and this is a big challenge for leaders it's okay to fail. Right. So if I'm going to go to PD, that means I'm going to find something new. I'm not going to PD on something old. So, and we talked about this morning, Paul, like it's about confidence. Do you have the confidence in yourself to carry something out that is different and new and may feel uncomfortable and icky and all those kind of things, and be prepared to fail, right? Same thing that we want from our kids is to understand mistakes. But it's, and this is, we'll probably get into this on our show where, there's definite barriers to that, right? There's, people think that if you have a poor lesson or something goes wrong, that it's automatically attached, to your employment. And, it's not necessarily the case. And I think, when we can, collect data on practice, not people, right? And be able to analyze practice, I think then it goes a long way. But when we just make it about the person, that's when, we run into that resistance and it's hard. And listen, I haven't always been successful at it. There were times where, why can't you do it like this? This doesn't seem too difficult. You should be able to do that, and I would say it nicely, but I would be upset if it wasn't carried out that way. So, being able to generate the understanding that, hey, listen, Stacey, I want you to go in with this moat, and guess what? I want you to bomb if you have to. just to get it off the ground. I want you to fall flat on your face, and you can, you know what? I'll be there to pick you up, and we'll dust it off, and we'll say, okay, what went well? How do we fix this? Do we ever do this again? And that doesn't happen a lot of times. It's usually, like you said, AJ, we go in, it's a shot, okay, it kind of worked, it didn't work, and all right, I'm going back to my, what I've done for the last 15 years.
And that's why I think it's so important for school leaders, district leaders, for any leader, to be part of the PD. Don't just send a teacher to PD and say, so what'd you learn? Be part of that PD so that when you are back in school, you can talk about what was there, what was learned, and how it can be implemented. I think that is really a huge, huge problem in schools, that teachers ask to go to the PD. We let them go to the PD. They come back. What'd you learn? There was this tool, there was that. And we go, oh, okay, great. So go use it.
Or when are you going to share about that? Right. Like we have morning shares. When are you going to have a morning share on that?
When are you going to talk about that for everybody?
And then they never show up. Right. Like that happens too. Like then
or they're sending the wrong message. They're
Yeah.
sending the wrong message. Maybe they didn't understand the tool. Maybe they're not comfortable with the tool, but
True.
they learned about it. So
Right.
what are
They have
supposed
like
to
a
do?
very surface level understanding of things.
Right.
It gets tricky. Yeah. And I think the other thing too, when you talk about culture, Corey, is that we also, I think we need to remind teachers, not only is it okay to fail, but we would never let our kids fail and not pick themselves up and not help them along the way. Right. Like that, like what we do for kids, we need to also do for ourselves, right? Like accept failure, accept our mistakes, learn from them, right? That's that status quo that you guys were talking about earlier. Like we can't be stuck in the, I have to be a perfectionist, I'm a type A person where everything has to be like here, or like if you're here, then you're not good enough, right? Like it's a matter of like, no one starts here in everything, right? Like it's a matter of like getting there and building the skills and building the knowledge and building the perseverance sometimes to just kind of stick with it, keep growing, and then be able to share with others in a way that's also meaningful. Because I think when PD stops with you, then what the heck, like why bother?
Yeah, well, a great point. And I think the challenge that we have is that, and I've come to the point where I use educators or adults. I try not to say teachers, or because we're all in this together. So, the challenge is we do have adults, and, this is a credit to Mary Beth Edmonds about just working from that deficit mindset, that deficit model, right? And when kids aren't doing it the way we expect, there must be something wrong, so there must be something wrong with them, not in my teaching, not in our curriculum, not in, our vision and mission. Right. And so that's where it becomes a challenge, because someone like you is not going to let your students fall. You'll let them fall on their face, but you'll be there to say, okay, let's talk about why you fell on your face and how can we prevent that from happening next time?
Yeah. Let me pick you up and give you a shoulder.
Exactly. I'm going to give you a hand up, not a hand out. Right. So, and I think that is the divide that we have, is we have, this expectation that you should come to the schoolhouse, through the schoolhouse doors or the virtual doors, and, you're just filled with respect. You should sit there with your arms folded, and Paul talks about it all the time. And, what's the antecedent behind that? If a kid is not, it's the idea of just a punishment, or automatic INRS or automatic, another, program is not necessarily, the case. And this morning that book that you shared the clip with the Merchant of Hope, she was talking just about that. And that PD, right? We're talking PD, was in 2006, the clip that I shared this morning with our group. If I played that clip at a PD today, and if she didn't share a few things, you would never know it was for 2006. It would be completely relevant in 2020.
Folks, I'm looking at the chat here, and Enrique just dropped something awesome in the chat talking about teacher accountability systems. Chris, thanks for putting it up. And I think this is huge, especially as someone who evaluates teachers, as evaluators, we can't look at teacher evaluations as check boxes. We can't look at it as something that needs to be done, and we knocked these evals out, we scored them, and we got through the post-conference, got it signed, got it back. We've got to look at it as moments for both sides to grow. And what I mean by that is, obviously the evaluator can certainly give some feedback as far as different things that can be done, different things that can be tried. But at the same time, the person who was evaluated can give valuable feedback that maybe the evaluator didn't see, and maybe also give relevant information that can be shared in another conference with the teacher. So I think that's hugely important, is that there's multifaceted learning opportunities for everybody that's involved in the teacher evaluation.
Great
Also
point,
in the
Paul.
chat is Kyle's comment,
Mhm.
right? If attendees give feedback to presenters on the spot, they rate the presentation. If they give feedback 3 to 6 months later, they rate content quality and its journey of practical, meaningful implementation. And I think that that's true, right? Like, what stuck? Like, ask me 3 to 6 months later if I'm doing anything, right? Like, I wasn't ready for Moat when I learned about it. I didn't need to use Kaizena when I was learning about it, but I need it now. And like, what's going to be sticky with that? And I know like Moat is such a simple, silly thing to be talking about. There are more transformative things in education. It's just the most recent thing that I attended.
Yeah, and Bethany has a great comment too, about the level of vulnerability. It's a word I can't say, so we're going to eliminate
Vulnerability
that from our podcast. Yeah, I'm not even going to try. It's on the screen. Everybody else can read it. And I come back to one of the things, especially in my work right now, is feedback. How do you give it? How do you receive it? We're not very good. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We're not very good. We don't, unless it's glowing. But just that's easy to handle. We don't like feedback. We don't like, and nobody does, right? Nobody likes to be told that they're not doing something up to expectation. So, creating feedback systems for kids, like what is the feedback going to look like? What is the frequency of the feedback? Like having actual system, making it systematized, and the same thing for, admin to teachers, 2 observations, 3 observations to give meaningful feedback, is not enough. You have to be, visible. You have to be, and listen, there are places where you can't do walkthroughs, right? Mm-hmm. You can't bring a pad and a pen in. If you do, it's a formal evaluation, right? So, when we say that we'll bring real things to episodes, this goes back to that data on practice. If I'm just collecting the data on, let's say, questioning, and we write down 100 questions as observers, and 78% of them are DOK1. Well, we got a practice problem. Mm-hmm. We don't have a people problem. We just have a practice problem. Let's work on it. Let's talk about it. Let's make that a focus of our PD at our PLCs, at our faculty meetings. And then let's go back and do it again. And guess what? Next time we did it, it's down to 50 or 50% are at DOK1. And we see, and that increases engagement, right? So now you look at it in versus, how does that increase engagement and engaging in those conversations? So, that in that way, data can be very fun. Some people don't like it, but, I'm like, you guys call Chris nerdy or geeky. That I'm the same way.
No, they call me geeky.
Then I'm with you, Stacey. I'm joining that geek club.
Yeah, and because this is a podcast about learning from other podcasts, Adam Grant in Work-Life Balance has a really great whole episode about getting feedback and being open-minded to it. I think it's like the first one in his first season. So, yeah. Well,
when I think of feedback, and Corey, you started to hit on this with the relationship between school administration and teachers. Okay, so I'll speak for myself, high school teacher. What frustrates me about feedback is, and a lot of teachers maybe feel this way, let me know in the chat, you do, you don't, is administrators come in, 2 to 3 times a year for 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And that very small sample size is supposed to paint a picture of who I am as an educator. And, I'm thinking, all right, I know I have been questioned on, well, Mr. Nessie, maybe your kids could have done this. I'm like, well, if you came in the 20 minutes before you came in, I did that, and then, I've been told, well, I didn't see it while I was there. So a tree fell in the woods and nobody was there to hear it, that kind of thing. So as a teacher, that's what's frustrating. I welcome feedback. I've had great conversations with administrators over the years. But what gets in the way for me is the other agenda of, well, yes, I'm listening to you and you're talking about stuff, but I need to talk about this, or this is the district initiative. And, this is the agenda that we're pushing. And conversations get stifled and stopped in their tracks because well, we've got to move on to the December professional development. We're done with November's PD, right? I'm just being real.
Well, listen, I mean, isn't that kind of what we do in curriculum, right? I got to follow the pacing guide. So I'm going to leave 30% of my students, at station A because I have to get through another portion of the curriculum. And we do the same thing in our professional development. And I think the other thing is the idea that, the idea of 2 observations or 3 observations to detail a person's year, right? So it's less than 1%. I did the math. It's less than 1% of the total time. It's something like 0.19% of the total time a teacher is in school in front of kids. And this is based on number of class teaching periods, not being in school with prep and duties and all that kind of stuff. So you think about other professions, and I always like to do this. If you're an apprentice plumber, right? You don't get your plumbing license and then go on a job and then do all these jobs. And then a month and a half down the road, the foreman comes and says, I'm going to observe you take out this sink or do this toilet job. Right. You're working with someone, it's job embedded, and they're telling you on the fly how that's going. Right. But in this profession, we don't do that. Right. And here's the other thing. Most of the mentoring that goes on, that's a whole nother podcast, right? So, how do we get that job embedded feedback that becomes feed forward, right? That the people can take it and say, all right, you know what? That's okay. We did it this way. Now we're going to try it this way and have no repercussions. Because I see the chat, people are fearful, right? Anytime, look at all the conversation around SGO right now.
Ugh.
And why? But here's the thing. If I asked you and all the people in the chat here, is it good to set goals? We'd say yes.
Yep.
It's not good to set goals if it's attached to your employment. And minus COVID, forget COVID for a second.
Well, even if they're not meaningful, I think the other thing is we set these goals and we set them in September, and in most realistic situations, you probably don't look at them again until you have to do the SGO, to score the SGO, to put it into whatever your SIS is, right? At the end of the year. Because how many people are looking at it? And when you create the benchmark, score the assessment, and create all the parameters, it's hard not to fail, and it's hard not to kind of fiddle with the information to benefit you in a way that's that makes you look good, right? The number of times when I filled that out, and I've only been filling them out, quite honestly, for 2 years. This is only my second year where my SGO has been attached to children, because as a coach, it looked a little different. But the sage advice that I've gotten from people is it doesn't matter. You give the assessment, you score the assessment, and you create what your percentiles are. And when people are saying that to you, you kind of feel like it's not that important. And so while I do, that's why I said, ugh, because for me, it's more of a chore. It's not something where I feel like I'm learning and growing. And I know you guys were talking about observations. I also have not participated in a formal observation for the last 2 years. This will be my 3rd year doing alternative evaluation, where I don't get observed. I have long, meaningful conversations with my administration, and we talk about what I'm doing in the classroom around a problem of practice that will benefit my kids. That to me is much more meaningful than you popping in. Don't get me wrong. Come in, see my morning meeting, come see me teach reading, come see me teach writing, come see me teach math. I don't care. I like that as well. But I don't know that I feel that I've learned anything when you have scripted my entire lesson. And then I've had observations in the past where my critiques and the things that I needed to work on and the things that I did well matched the person who was also in my same job position. And there are so few of us, it's like, okay, well, if I'm doing exactly what person B is doing, then and we're not doing the same thing, I don't know what you're looking for. And I don't feel that your feedback is meaningful. So I love and appreciate the fact that I get to be part of this all eval. And then my PD is my own, right? Which I also live for. Like, I like finding my own professional development so that I can focus on the things that I know I need to do to improve my teaching and to improve my practice, not only with my kids, but also with my colleagues. So that's been really meaningful for me. But that's where the for SGO comes from.
And with social media, think about it. I mean, there's so much opportunity to find meaningful, relevant professional development, not one size fits all. Hey, we checked the box. This was our district initiative type of PD, which we know you can only take so much from. So the opportunity is certainly there. And Kyle's got a great comment that, just supports everything that you just said, Stacey.
Yeah, I think looking at Kyle's comment about digital portfolios, I think that's absolutely something that could be used. Even action research, something that is presented, at the end of a year as a culminating project for teachers. I know it's another thing for teachers to do, but I think a lot of teachers would much rather create something like a digital portfolio or some kind of action research where they can present to the staff, present to their admin team at the end of the year, instead of getting, meaningless observations where, you go through social media. I saw somebody post the other day, I'm getting observed by somebody who's has not even taught what I teach. How am I supposed to take their feedback? First of all, I found that disrespectful. But secondly, I understand where you're coming from, because if you teach a specialty, you're not going to be understood the same way that you'd want to be. So those portfolios and then the research, I think, really would be something powerful. So Corey,
that is part of what we
Corey,
keep track of for our all eval is a portfolio type thing. So it's really helpful.
And I think, AJ, that the goal for administration is not to make it another thing, it's to make it the thing.
Nothing. Absolutely.
Right. So if this is what we know is the most effective instruction for this group, right? So I don't use the term best practice, and I got to thank Mark Natanagara for that, because best practice for Stacey may be not the best practice for AJ, right? So the most effective practices. So if it's the thing and we're utilizing data in our classrooms, right? We don't need a big test to figure some things out. I mean, there is some value in that data, but if we're using data in the classroom to make adjustments, and create interventions at the tier 1 level, right, where we're keeping kids in our classrooms and not going to tier 2 and tier 3, we can make it the thing. It's just a matter of bringing people to the table to design it, right? Not being designed just from, from state level to the local education, the LEA, the district, or one administrator in a building saying, no, this is exactly how it has to be. There needs to be that intentional collaborative design.
Wow. I mean,
and I'm thinking that through. I'm like, what if everything was intentional instead of like a check mark, right? Like, do you have your SGO? Do you have your PDP? Do you have, you know what I mean? Like,
and I was even thinking, going back to Kyle's point, in my district and in my school, they've adapted the Danielson model that we use, where, for example, I'm going to be observed on December 17th, my first observation of the year. And what we're doing is we have to put together collect artifacts like a portfolio over a certain period of time. So I got the email from my vice principal and said, you've got from this date to this date to assemble and artifacts that represent, domain 1, domain 3, and I think domain 4 we're focusing on, and just provide links and whatever you're doing that supports and is evidence. Because if they know that if they come in for that 20-minute observation into my Google Meet, how can they effectively evaluate what I'm doing? And my approach has always been, I don't care when you come in. My door is always open because I'm a teacher and I have to be in the classroom. So the door is always open. I don't care when you come in. I have never done the dog and pony show. I whatever lesson happens to be on the day you say you're coming or the day you show up, that's what I'm doing. Evaluate me. Come in anytime you want. And, we've talked about pineapple charts and,
watch me teach.
And watch me teach and all those things. And teachers need to do that too many teachers are afraid to let other people come onto their island and into their rooms.
Or the first thing they do is get their union involved. So then it just puts the kibosh, right? Because then it's but what's the union going to say? Right. Whereas like, what if it was yes, and imagine what I can learn by going to see Paul and AJ and Corey and Chris and the valuable things that I'll see from them, or how they interact with their kids, or just all that. Sorry, Chris, I jumped in there.
No, I mean, valid points. Some people, the first thing they do is they wave that little flag, and those are the people I worry about. Just going to say, like, if you need to wave the flag, there's a reason. This year, a couple of administrators came into Google Meets. I'm going to just speak virtually for a second. A couple of administrators came in early in the year. I haven't seen anybody in my Google Meet since then. And it's like, and AJ, Corey, Paul, you guys are administrators. What are you guys doing all day while we're doing virtual teaching? Please enlighten me from your point of view. Why administrators aren't going into more Google Meets or Zoom meetings just to pop in, float through. Virtual drive-bys, we might say.
I'm too busy playing on my phone and checking Twitter, so I can't do that.
It's so many things, and because of the COVID era, there's new things that we're doing on a daily basis that we maybe weren't doing before. I mean, covering classes like you might not before because of substitute coverage. Working with kids that are having meltdowns and things of that nature, mask training, stuff like that, kids that are struggling with their masks and stuff like that. But by no means, is any of that an excuse or an explanation. It's just, that those are the realities. But I think we could always be in classrooms more.
Yeah, I'm not questioning what you're doing. I have to say, I miss the presence of people coming in, right? Like, and I think part of it is, as a hybrid teacher, like, I appreciate when my admin comes in, but I feel like even as we got later into the school year, the fear of being in the classroom and just being like the super spreader by going through my classroom and then going into the next hybrid classroom, right? Like, and I get it, but it's just like, I don't know, come visit, I love having visitors. It's like, I don't know, the kids feel like we're extra special because, oh, look, the principal came, or there's our assistant principal. There's the other assistant principal. Oh, there's our school counselor. Like, they're all just being goofy, saying hi. Like, even if it's a walk in, a walk out, like a smile and a wave from the doorway.
And my favorite thing to do is once somebody walks in the room, I immediately deflect the spotlight right onto that person.
So do
principal,
I stop and I'm
principal.
like, boys and girls,
hey, everybody.
Paul and Mr. O'Neill a big shout out.
Look who's here. Who's at the door, kids? Who's in the neighborhood today?
Maybe that's why nobody comes to your classrooms.
But don't you being like the special person, the special visitor?
Absolutely.
I'm also the fool who will email the director of curriculum or an assistant superintendent or the superintendent and say, "Here's what I'm doing in my classroom." And my in-class support teachers hate me when they're like, "Did you invite anybody to see what you're going to be doing?" And I'm like, "You bet I did, because I want them to see what the kids are doing. It's not about me. I'm just trying to create this opportunity, and why shouldn't I let people see what's going on? It's not about me. Let them see what the kids are doing."
Yeah, Chrissy said that's why weekly visits are essential to see the whole picture. I remember one district I worked in, the principal, like clockwork, would come visit each classroom, and he did the same rotation every day and pretty much left his office at exactly the same time. And he was like, "It'd be nice to see you doing something besides morning meeting." I was literally the first classroom he came to every morning.
Yeah.
I don't know, in any world, they would still be morning meeting. And I just thought to myself, it'd be nice if you start, like we called them bases. I was like, it'd be nice if you started on third base instead of first. And maybe by the time you got to my room, I'd be teaching math or whatever comes first period, I used to be a baseball manager.
Yeah.
You never know when you're going to get a Stacey line in there. Oh, Chris.
It's, I agree with Chrissy that it has to be on your schedule. And I know, right now, my current role is I work with the DOE. So I work with those schools that are identified for comprehensive or targeted status. And one of the things that I do with the principals that I'm coaching is first, don't make any of the mistakes I made. No, but I say, going back to that word intentional, be intentional about it. So even pre-COVID, I said, you have to put that in your Outlook or your Google Calendar But I used to think, like, in the beginning of my, leadership career as a building leader, I'd be like, oh, there's my yellow pad. I'm going to walk into a classroom. Let's go. I'm going to take some time. And I thought that was great. And I jot down a few notes, and, I had this cute little card that said, I really liked, have you considered? Right. And that was the feedback I really liked. And it was always something I liked, even if it was the flowers on the windowsill. You found something that you liked, and then have you considered? But I had no rhyme or reason with what I was doing. And until I put it on a calendar and said, this is where we're going, and this is what we're looking for, and then be overt about that and that's where I've made some mistakes, where I wasn't always overt about what I was looking for. And not that I wanted a dog and pony show, but hey, listen, we're doing questioning. We're going to be looking at questioning, or we're looking at engagement, or we're looking, at, some of the classroom environment, and what does that look like? So, you have to be intentional in what you do.
Well, speaking of intentional, this has been a fantastic conversation. And I almost feel bad because it's like, we could probably go on for another 40, 50 minutes, couple hours.
I feel like it's
about
a Saturday and it's ed camp.
Yes. But I mean, we'll just have to have you guys back on. And I mean, again, this is the whole premise of this podcast, is talking about how we can make meaning of professional development. And, we create some fun episodes, but it's been a while since we've created an episode like this and had this type of conversation. And, Corey and Paul, I can't thank you guys enough for coming on here on a Sunday night to be a part of this and, really take us in a great direction.
I appreciate each one of you and the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, same. Thanks for leading the way, and keep doing what you guys are doing.
Really looking
no
forward
intention
to
of stopping.
Well, maybe. No, but seriously, in all seriousness, guys, thank you for coming on. And I think for those listening who don't know you, when they get a chance to listen to the Status Grow podcast, I think they're going to kind of see who you are, and this is the kind of conversation they can look forward to going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
All right, thank you guys.
So before we let you guys go, how can people connect with you who are maybe hearing your voices for the first time?
Corey, that's a great spot for you. That's the tagline at the end.
Oh, our tagline where I say, you take it home, that one? Or
no, you can follow us on these hashtags, and
you can follow us on PLN365 or Coffee EDUJS. My Twitter handle is in the name there on the screen. Paul O'Neill is Paul O'Neill 1972. What a great year to be born. I got to agree with that. Reach out to us with anything. You want to send us a message, ask questions. If you have ideas for some show topics, we'll take it. We ain't too proud to beg.
There you go. Awesome. And I'm going to help Corey out because we do release this. This is not just a YouTube show. So for the audio listener on the podcast side, connect with Corey on Twitter at CRadish, RADICSH_WC. And of course, links to everything will be in the show notes about the Status Grow and how to connect with them, the hashtags. And we're pretty much going to end the episode because we gave you all a lot to think about. Thank you so much to everybody who came out live in the chat. Too many names to mention because it's been a while since we had an audience this big, but
join us next time and give us your voice.
Yes. The lines are always open. Coming up on, I think this is our last episode of the calendar year. And you guys can look forward to hearing the 12 days of Podcast PD coming to you. Stacey, when does the 12 days of Christmas begin?
December 26th, I think.
Starting on December 26th, we will come at you every day with a little nugget of Podcast PD, and we look forward to sharing that with you. So if you're not subscribed, if you're here for the first time, go to podcastpd.com/go on your podcast listening device, and that will help you to subscribe. If you've got feedback, comments, questions, go to podcastpd.com/feedback, and there are all the ways that you can get feedback to all of us.
December 25th, Chris.
Thank you, Stacey. We now check the calendar, so we'll come at you on Christmas Day with Podcast PD. I'll be live under my tree.
The magic of Google.
The magic of Google. Speaking of magic, Stacey.
It's time
Do
for
your
the
thing.
magic. All right. All right, let's see. It's time to say goodbye. So say goodbye, Christopher.
Goodbye, Christopher.
Say goodbye, AJ.
Goodbye, AJ.
Say goodbye, Corey.
Goodbye, Corey.
Say goodbye, Paul.
Goodbye, Paul.
Goodbye, Podcast PD.
All right, there's my little edit point. We're still live. No offense to any former guest of this podcast, but finally, our guest got the magic right.
Yes. I always start off with the co-host so that it's like, oh,
They can pick up
just
on a
say their
pattern.
name.
Modeling, podcast modeling.
Podcast modeling. There you go. Seriously, guys, thank you
That's
so much
fantastic.
for popping on. It must be fate because the podcast you're creating totally fit with what we had behind the scenes wanted to make an episode about. So thank you, Jesus.
Thank you,
great.
guys. It's been a while since we actually had like a thought-provoking conversation, to be honest with you.
A lively chat that just kind of spun everywhere, right? There wasn't like one solid agenda because we've had those great conversations too. When we had Ken Shelton on, that was amazing.
That was
But
true.
it was super focused. It really did feel like a Saturday at Ed Camp. And now I think people will understand why I'm excited for your podcast.
Yeah, we
Because-
appreciate it, really.
Well, thank you.
It's
I
so
am
awesome.
following on Spotify.
You guys are the best. We appreciate you. Appreciate the support.
Yeah, when I saw
Always.
the tweet inviting, Paul and I did the same thing. We messaged each other and we're like, "Whoa, are we going live? What's happening?" and so yeah, this has really been fantastic. So we can't thank you enough for bringing us on and helping promote.
Keep doing your thing, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, seriously.
It's Jersey. It's what we do. It's Jersey.
That's what we do.
The Jersey thing. Well, again,
And you got to be proud. I didn't even bring up the Giants today.
I'm surprised. I thought you had to at some point.
AJ, I know. You know me. I was practicing before we went on. Like, how am I gonna? And I never felt comfortable enough. I felt comfortable to just interject about the Giants. The conversation just went in a great direction. I didn't want to, but yeah, what a win today.
That was a great
Honestly,
win.
now if I had talked about how Paul reminds me of like a great locker room coach, like when you watch like a football movie and like the coach is in there at halftime and he's like, "This is all I know about sports is what I've seen in a movie," because I'm just not there for the sports. But then that would have been your opening, Corey. I'm sorry. I was
Yeah.
there were
You
times
do
when I was like, I just need to bring up like Paul's energy and how I feel like it's halftime and he's like lifting you up to go out for the second half of the game, and then that would have been your opening. That the
Yeah,
Giants
you're right.
must have had a good pep talk.
I mean, if you threw a whistle on him right now, would it not be a coach? Look at him.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
He's ready to go.
He's like the
He's ready to
Ed.
go.
I was going to go more like Ed Hockley, the NFL referee.
Wow.
I better hit the
It's
weight.
like a deep cut.
Order.
All right, let's just guys get out of here. It's late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks
All right,
everybody
guys,
in the
take
chat.
care.
Thank
We'll
you.
be back.
Thank you.
Peace
Talk to you
out. Wave
soon.
goodbye.
Why do we wave on Zoom calls? Do you ever notice that?
Because we can.